Hello, everybody. We have an amazing, incredible live stream for you today. So much going on. You wouldn't even believe it if I told you. We're going to be watching. Ted Cruz has a podcast, and I've been avoiding watching it, listening to it, but we'll be watching it. So we're going to do that, critique it, see what Ted Cruz looks and sounds like in podcast form. So that'll be fascinating. And then we're going to be watching Donald Trump's speech on Friday. I'm really curious to see how he's going to come out and try to respond to all of the January 6th revelations in that format. And then if we have time, I will be taking phone calls through Discord to chat with you guys. So we'll take a little bit of time to let people hop in. And I always love seeing you guys in the chat, talking with you, all that good stuff. So let me pull it up. Oh my goodness. Hello, guys. This time I didn't do any countdown or anything, so like I just started. That's why it'll take a second for people to hop on. But it looks like we already have a few people in the chat. What's up? Thank you. Someone said I'm looking good. Thank you very much, sir. While we're waiting for people to hop in, yeah, slimy indeed. The Ted Cruz podcast will be. Oh, perfect, Jared. Happy to hear it. So while we're waiting for people to hop in and we'll, get on the stream, we will check out Biden's little biking fail. I will say, why are people giving him a hard time for this? I see exactly what happened, and this happens to the best of us. And also, it made him look so fit. Like, when he pulls up, look at his legs. That's an old man, and he has really good, fit-looking legs, which is crazy. All right. Boom. Oof. So you can tell whenever he pulls up. Let's see. Let's keep it paused. I need to adjust this. I can't even see my monitor. There we go. Nope, that's weird. I got a new computer, guys, so it should stream a lot better now. You can see when he's trying to get off, his foot gets caught right here in his little pedal thing. So then he's trying to pull his foot out, but he can't get it off. And he is like now hopping on one foot and then falls to the side. Because when I first watched it, it just looks like he's standing there and just goes boom. But then I watched a couple times and saw that his foot got caught in his little pedal thing. Look. Oh. And down he goes. But overall, I mean, you would never, people giving, like, conservatives giving Trump a hard time, giving Biden a hard time about this, need to shut up, because you'll never see Trump riding on a bike like this. Come on. And honestly, for any old man like him, it's pretty impressive, I gotta say. We'll watch it one more time, but it's still funny because he's the president falling on a bike. And kerplunk. But apparently he got up and said, I'm good. So if you're concerned about his health, he's all okay from the bike incident. So that's our little warm up for the day. I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing Ted Cruz's podcast is mostly him pretending to be a lot dumber than he really is. Maybe, yeah. Oh yeah, happy Juneteenth, guys. Am I a model? Oh my goodness. Hunted Savages is being very complimentary of my looks today. Thank you so much. No, I'm not a model. I'm a political commentator. But yeah, he is really fit indeed. I agree with Carnage. Don't forget to like and share the stream. Well, we have some people, so I'll just go ahead and jump into our first activity. What the heck? What am I, a school teacher? So as a reminder for people who just got here, what we're going to be doing today, and I kind of want to start doing live streams in this format where I tell you up front what we're doing and then we go through like an entire kind of show of things. But as you know, my normal videos are news/commentary, and it's stuff that I go out, research, look into, and then present a story to you in kind of short consumable clips that are 5 minutes to 15 minutes. And that's what comes up at the top of my channel page. But then I also live stream, and what I do during live streams is primarily react type content. So I watch stuff and then react to it, give my take, longer form. And so a lot of people have been requesting that when I do the live streams, I leave them up on my channel as a full, like, multiple hour live stream. So that's what I'm going to do. We'll see. If it gets really crappy views and stuff, I might not do it. But if people like really long form content, I can totally leave it up and make it more fast paced in between things that we do. Because a lot of times if I know I'm not uploading it on my stream, I'll just sit here and like talk to chat forever. But if I leave it up on the channel, I can go ahead and make it a little bit more fast paced in between different items. But then the actual material we'll go through is naturally pretty slow paced because it's multiple hours of content. And like I said, today we'll be watching Ted Cruz's podcast, who he does it with Michael Knowles, which is a right-wing commentator, and reacting to the absurdity we will probably see. And then we'll be watching a quick Jamie Raskin interview, but that's just like a palate cleanser. And then we'll go to watching Trump's speech from Friday. Sound good? Let me check in on chat one more time before we do that. You enjoy the live stream. Not a model yet. Thank you guys. Too darn sweet. Well, let's do it. Here we have Ted Cruz doing his podcast with Michael Knowles.
Welcome back to Verdict with Ted Cruz. I'm Michael Knowles, no longer able to sleep at night because the co-host of this show is going to take away every...
And like I said, I did just get a new computer, so I had to reset up everything for live streaming. So just let me know, as always, if my own mic is at a good level compared to the stuff that we're watching and all that good stuff. If the video looks good, I always need that feedback.
Everybody's Social Security. So says
that seems
the leader of the formerly free world. Senator, what say you?
Well, you know, I will say the White House this week noted and designated it as Elder Abuse Day. And I guess I do have to apologize because apparently I'm interfering with Joe Biden's nap time. You know, it really is amazing that.
Oof, that was so scripted, and also he's not a funny person. Judging by prevalence, it seems like supercut uploads do well on main channels and or full VODs for second channels. That's a good point. I just, with everything else I have going on in life right now, I don't think me also having to go through and edit live streams to upload is possible. But we'll see.
The kind of fear-mongering that the White House does. You remember years ago, the Democrats ran ads of Paul Ryan literally pushing Granny off the cliff? So now he's standing at the AFL-CIO saying Cruz wants to end Social Security. I mean, look, let's be honest. Who has hurt seniors more in the past 20 years than Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.? You got 9% inflation, food prices skyrocketing, healthcare skyrocketing, electricity skyrocketing, gas skyrocketing. Seniors are getting screwed. The only one who can compete with Joe Biden for screwing seniors is Jimmy Carter. And so what does he do? He fear-mongers. He suggests...
So it is true, just to be clear, that Republicans have been trying to cut Social Security, and they're possibly, I guess, at it again under the guides of, oh, the program's going to become bankrupt. But at any moment, we could just decide to fund it more. It's not difficult. There's so much outstanding taxes that we could tax from people who wouldn't even feel it, namely the wealthy, that we don't need to be fear-mongering about, oh, we're not going to have enough money to pay seniors their Social Security. But that's what the Republicans have been doing as an excuse to cut that very helpful, beneficial, valuable government spending. Popular.
Look, Social Security is a bedrock of our country. Ain't nobody messing with it. He knows that. But he can't run on his record. So he's got to scare people. And I'm sorry that Joe Biden is finding it hard to sleep at night.
Someone once told me in politics many years ago that the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. And I assume that principle is in play here. It's interesting that Biden, while he's making this desperate plea in what seems to be a very unfavorable year for Democrats, he's going after you.
Yeah, I will say, I guess I'm kind of flattered that apparently I'm not just MAGA, I am ultra MAGA. Like that's
just
okay.
That's a point of clarification here, Senator. You worked very well with Donald Trump. Obviously, you guys worked very well together during the administration. But I seem to recall that you were the man's chief primary rival. If I were going to describe someone as ultra MAGA, doesn't that seem a little...
Yeah, you were. And you said you would never allow someone to talk about your family in the way that he did. Dog mother can't take Ted Cruz. I get you. And he alluded to your wife being ugly, and you said you just wouldn't stand it, and you pretended he was such a threat to the country, and then all of a sudden, not so much, and you became very supportive of him. Now the whole ultra MAGA thing's stupid. Like I don't know why they thought that was a good branding thing. The left, not the left, but like the Democrats. Oh, we're gonna call people ultra MAGA. No one cares. Stupid. They're just, I don't know, MAGA, ultra MAGA, whatever. We all know the group that we're talking about. I don't think it's super harmful to identify them as super, like it's not harmful to their movement to identify them as being super what they're proud of being, if that makes sense. And so, or ultra. And so I think that's kind of stupid. But saying, oh, maybe he's not such a Trump bootlicker because he was his primary opponent just points out that the fact that he's such a Trump bootlicker now is such a contradiction, and shows from his primary language, and shows how much of a hypocrite he is and how he's just going for what's best for him in the moment, principleless.
A little bit strange to describe the guy's primary rival that way.
So look, Biden gets confused sometimes, and I'm not sure he knows what any of these words mean. I mean, Biden literally, he was elected to the Senate in 1972. When Joe Biden was first elected to the Senate, I was 1.5 years old.
Yeah.
So I understand how he remembers back to the false campaigns Democrats have run way back when. You know what? Biden said Ronald Reagan was going to take away Social Security. I mean, Biden has been saying that line for a long...
And that's what the Republicans have sometimes not so subtly been saying explicitly in many Republican eras, is we are going to have to cut Social Security. Now they wiggle around a little bit more, but...
long time, for literally the entirety of my life, and for
update to everyone who has been asking about super chats, which I appreciate that y'all are even wanting to do that. Today I got the email that I passed the watch hours amount that is needed to apply for monetization, and I obviously have to be monetized for you guys to be able to send me money, and so I applied to be monetized. It says it takes, a certain number of days or whatever. So in the very near future, we should have that option available for super chats to be sent, as well as I think super thanks, and obviously just my videos will be monetized. So that's awesome.
Double the entirety of yours.
That's a good point, actually. And Reagan had 2 terms, didn't take away Social Security. It did strike me when he said that as just a kind of tired old line. Maybe it would have worked in 2010 or 2012, but even his talking points, they seem to be a little dated at this point. But it wasn't just Biden, Senator. I do not speak Spanish. You know this. You have spoken Spanish to me. I have responded by asking you where the library is. That is the extent of my Spanish. But from what I could make out, it sounds as though the president of Mexico, Mr. Andrés Manuel López Obrador, does not like you very much.
Este señor Ted Cruz, senador, diciendo que celebra el que yo no asista a la cumbre porque yo protejo.
Marco Rubio, y si me permite, dice, me alegra ver que el presidente mexicano, que ha entregado secciones de su país a los cárteles de droga y es un apologista de la tiranía en Cuba, un dictador asesino en Nicaragua y de un narcotraficante en Venezuela, no estará esta semana en Estados Unidos. ¿Qué comentarías a Marco?
Yeah, I really don't like Michael Knowles. He bothers me. Because he has this, like, I'm out of the right-wing commentator factory. To me, Ben Shapiro, I disagree with him on pretty much everything, but he seems original, you know? Like, he is him. And he created the aesthetic that he now presents. Whereas Michael Knowles and, gosh, what are those other people's names? Matt Walsh, seem like they are just modeling themselves out of people like, or off of Ben Shapiro and other people like that, and don't really have like original thoughts. They're just rehashing and reiterating all of the right-wing talking points to cash in on the significant amount of money that's to be made by doing that.
Marco Rubio.
Pues yo no sé, es que no los identifico bien, pero hay
Es
uno...
senador por Florida, republicano.
Ah, sí, pero no solo es ese.
Ah.
Entonces son tres. Es este señor Rubio, que pertenece al Partido Republicano. Así es, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Y Ted Cruz también al Partido Republicano.
I don't know if it's the lectern or whatever these are called, podium, or what, but he looks really short.
También.
Bueno, el Ted Cruz, igual, pero todavía Ted Cruz le añadió, o sea, que no solo protejo dictaduras, sino que permití al narcotráfico que dominara en un amplio territorio de México.
This is a long
Yo le
clip.
digo
What the
al
heck?
señor Ted Cruz, a Marco Rubio, pero también al otro, a los dos, que presenten pruebas.
I could make out about one phrase there, Senator. The phrase was Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz kept coming up. So if you wouldn't mind, I know you're a little more fluent than I am. What did the president of Mexico say about you? And
There were subtitles, you moron. What the heck?
why is he so angry with you?
So I will say that is one of the most bizarre press conferences I've ever seen, because you've got a Mexican reporter who asks him a question about Marco Rubio. And AMLO says, I'm sorry, who is this Rubio guy? I don't know who he is. And the reporter says, oh, he's the senator from Florida. And he goes, yeah. There are three of them, three of the Cubans, but Ted Cruz. And it's the most bizarre thing, because the reporter asked about Rubio, and AMLO responds by attacking me. And I mean, going off on a screed, attacking me. And it's really bizarre. So the reason AMLO is so worked up is that at a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing, I pointed out that Mexico has had a horrific record under AMLO's presidency of allowing journalists to be murdered. And we're seeing historic levels of the drug cartels murdering journalists. If a journalist dares cover the drug cartels and cover their murder and extortion and crimes, they're killing them, and AMLO's turning a blind eye. And what's fascinating about this exchange, so Rubio had tweeted about AMLO's support for Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela and dictators, and actually AMLO doesn't mind that. He's like, yeah, forget about the dictators. Cruz is saying I'm turning a blind eye to the drug cartels, and what he says there is, show me the proof. And he actually goes on later in that press conference to say, I have the proof that Cruz is on the take from the supporters of gun rights. And so he goes on this whole thing about...
Which is true.
You know, Cruz refuses to ban guns. You know what, AMLO? Damn straight. I refuse to ban guns. We have this thing in the United States called the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. You don't want your citizens to be able to defend themselves from the drug cartels that are terrorizing innocent Mexican citizens. And instead of responding to the substance, instead of having a government that actually takes steps to protect freedom of the press, to protect journalists, to stand up to the criminals, instead, AMLO seems very, very dismayed. To quote Shakespeare, methinks she doth protest too much.
I just love that he has that nickname, AMLO. He's sort of like J-Lo with the Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. That's very impressive. And when you've got two world leaders...
I do love that. I was just looking at the list of all the politicians who take a bunch of contributions from the NRA, which is now kind of obsolete, but now they're, cemented themselves in these positions so much they kind of got to keep it. The politicians, that is. But it is fascinating how right then he volunteers the information that AMLO pointed out that he takes a lot of money from the gun lobbyist groups. And he says, well, you know what? I don't want to ban guns and Second Amendment. So you're not going to address at all that you do take a lot of money from these groups, including the NRA, and how that might influence your views on these issues? Because you can believe the Second Amendment is valuable and you can believe that we should respect it, and also believe some level of reasonable regulation is appropriate. And he doesn't address at all the main crux of the point that was brought up.
Both in North America, attacking you. You've got Biden going after you, and then this feckless guy down in Mexico. I suppose that means you're probably doing something right.
Look, I'm just waiting for Justin Trudeau. I want the trifecta. Come on, man. The Canadian truckers were right. Let's see if Trudeau...
Also, guys, don't have a podcast where there's some right-wing political commentator who just
rises to the occasion,
sits there and literally on camera smooches the butt of a politician. It's so cringy. Either host your own podcast, or if you want to have an ally of yours, a staffer or something, help you run it so they can prep stories for you and stuff, that's fine. But if you have a well-known right-wing figure host it with you, they should have to pose legitimate questions to you. But instead it's just Michael Knowles being like, oh, you're so amazing, Ted. Oh, it's disgusting.
Now, Justin Trudeau knows a thing or two about Cuba and Cubans, according to rumors, but who knows? Maybe we can discuss that on a future podcast. I do have to talk about one other
Michael,
group.
I'm not going to ask you who's your daddy.
That's true. It's, as Telemachus says,
What?
It's a wise man knows his own father, and certainly that's true up in America's hat as well. But closer to home, there is another group that's going after you. That would be, of course, the media and the congressional Democrats, and really, I suppose I'm repeating myself, in the January 6th committee. Because you have been such a target of this whole thing, what is your take on the January 6th hearings?
Pelosi really gave up the game. When the committee was being formed, and typically in a committee you have a roughly equal number of Democrats and Republicans, the majority.
How's the audio level comparison to their voices compared to mine? Y'all let me know. Also, he's the one who called January 6th a violent terrorist attack. Don't you think we should investigate that with a congressional committee? What the heck are you talking about? Now you're saying, oh, it's so stupid. Okay, whatever.
The party typically has one or two more, but it's about equal.
Yeah, as 100 savages. Oh, I see what that means. 100 said, Cruz better not ask who's your daddy, because if he does, he'll have to answer it Trump.
and the majority party doesn't get to pick the other party's members that are on it. And so Kevin McCarthy selected several people, including Jim Jordan. And
as a reminder, guys, after Ted Cruz was so offended by Trump's insinuation that his wife is ugly, he said, "You will not talk to me. You can come after me, but not my wife." And he said all these terrible things about Trump, made it so clear he was opposed to him. And then once Trump got the nomination, boop. Oh, it's too good. Too stinking good.
And Nancy Pelosi said, no, we don't want real Republicans. We don't want actually people who will ask questions.
Turn up the video a bit.
Instead, she picked Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger because they both decided they're not Republicans anymore. And their agenda's the same, which is to attack all the Republicans just like Pelosi's is.
Right.
And you know, I got to say, so as you walk down the hall, this is the only question
Penn Sylvester, thank you for being here.
that reporters want to ask, and they're asking it constantly. And I just laugh. They're like, are you going to watch it? I'm like, why would I watch this? I don't watch the Democratic National Conventions.
Why would I watch a hearing that is exposing evidence that the leader of my party tried to overturn the election? That's irrelevant. That's stupid.
Convention every 4 years. That is a multi-day political campaign ad. It is designed to be propaganda, and I get it. They can have their campaign ads. But it's not actual factual inquiry. And if it were, look, if you want to ascertain what's going on, if you look at congressional hearings that go somewhere, you have cross-examination, you have scrutiny. You have, if a particular witness comes in and makes a charge, there's all these allegations that are made, you actually have someone challenge the credibility of the witness, press on, engage. Cross-examination is a powerful tool for ferreting out truth. But for example, this kangaroo court has zero interest in Nancy Pelosi's culpability on January 6th with stopping a sufficient law enforcement presence, stopping a sufficient effort to stop the riot that happened because she said, in her words, it was bad optics. They don't want to talk about that because that's inconsistent with their political narrative. I think it makes a lot of reporters.
Wait, what? He's saying Nancy Pelosi didn't want a bunch of law enforcement because it would be bad optics. But none of that conversation would be necessary if a mob didn't attack the Capitol. And so the hearing is getting to the root of why did the mob attack the Capitol. Unless you could have any evidence that like Nancy Pelosi is actually a secret Republican who wanted them to attack the Capitol and blah, 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 then that would be relevant to this hearing. But we're talking about why they attacked the Capitol and what things around that both led to it and were related in trying to overturn the election, right? So the actual plot to overturn the election through the peaceful means and then obviously the violent riot means. And pretending that Nancy Pelosi is related to this at all, except from the fact that she was trying to run for her life from a mob that wanted to murder her, is silly.
Really excited, but I don't think it's going to change any voter's mind anywhere in America. And by the way, the New York Times, there's an old line that a gaffe is when someone in Washington accidentally tells the truth.
Right.
The New York Times let the cat out of the bag when they ran as a headline, January 6th committee hearings present opportunity for Democrats to change the midterm narrative. Well, that's obviously what they want to do.
Which is what they should. I hate this. Gosh, sometimes I hate politics, but I love it. Like, I love it and I hate it. Of course, if you're a party and your understanding is that the alternative party's leader tried to overturn a free and fair election, and that party, that party who still has that leader, even though not technically in power, very much in power in other ways, is very likely to get back in power. then I do think it's completely reasonable to use an investigation into that potential, plot to overturn an election to explain to the voters why they shouldn't put that party in power again. It's not, oh, it's horrible because they're making it political. Yes, when we're talking about a political action that was trying to keep a political party in power that wasn't supposed to be in power, then it is very, very acceptable that they would want to use that same platform, which is these hearings, to explain to the voters, prove to the voters, encourage the voters not to put that party in power again.
I think it has failed badly so far, and I think it's going to continue to fail.
Do you think Pelosi made a mistake kicking Jordan and Banks and the real Republicans off the committee? That is,
Yes.
if you do think, because if they were on the committee, presumably the Republicans would be more engaged. You'd have the grilling. There would be a reason to tune in.
I think it was stupid to kick off the real Republicans. And look, even from a perspective of TV, let's say you're Nancy Pelosi and you're not interested in truth. You are interested in eyeballs.
Right.
And frankly, the clash of seeing Jordan or Banks go at it with the witnesses makes good TV. That conflict would cause some people possibly to give a flip about what's going on. This is right now a bunch of Democrats talking to a bunch of Democrats. It's MSNBC. This is like a panel of MSNBC talking heads sitting down and going, Trump is terrible. Yes, Trump is terrible.
Are you kidding me? Trump allies are being shown their testimonies in these hearings. People who were the closest, his daughter, his attorney general. Not to mention the most recent hearing that showed Pence's legal counsel. These are people that were so close to Trump this entire presidency, and even they are saying it went crazy at the end there. This isn't just like a bunch of Democrats around talking about evidence they found, but they're not really showing what the evidence is. They're literally playing for us testimonies of people who are very, very close to Donald Trump, who, at least were up until they acknowledged the election wasn't stolen. And they're calling those people Democrats, I guess, now. Yeah, Ivanka Trump wants to take down her father, sure.
Well, I agree. Oh, definitely. And that's boring and not news. We know you think that. It was not lost on us that you don't have the Donald Trump swimsuit calendar up on your wall. We got that. I think it was a...
Ted, you called this a violent terrorist attack. And then you went, I'm so sorry, whenever Tucker Carlson smacked you around for saying that. How about you hold to your own dang statement? And if it was, I agree with his assessment there, generally, of it being a violent terrorist attack, then you would want us to look into that attack and for Congress to do its job and oversee, the actions of the last executive branch administration. This is just so upsetting.
A bad strategic and tactical mistake for Pelosi to throw the Republicans selected by the Republicans off the committee, because just like the New York Times, it said the quiet part out loud. It made it obvious. We are telling a story complete with our Hollywood producer, and we don't want anyone telling any different stories than the story we want to tell.
No. Shut up. They first were saying we want to have a bipartisan, independent, I think it's called a independent, what do they call those? A committee. It wasn't going to be like it is now. It was going to be bipartisan, and the chair was going to be a Democrat, but then it was going to be split Republicans and Democrats. Kevin McCarthy rejected that. And then because they couldn't do that, they had to do just a Democrat-run one. But they still wanted Republicans to be on board. So then they now have the power to pick who they want. And they said, hey, who would you guys want to be on the committee? And they said Jim Jordan, a bunch of, Looney Tune people. And because it's now their committee, they denied those ones and picked some more reasonable ones. But if you would have gone along with the previous plan that was an independent group where, independent commission, thank you, where the Republicans would have almost just as much of a say and would get to pick who is, involved, then this wouldn't be a problem. It's something the Republicans do a lot. They create a problem and then they moan about it and blame it on the Democrats.
And just look at the coverage. I think the Times example is a great point here. The New York Times is covering the coverage. The New York Times is covering the way they want to shift the narrative, but there's no actual news happening, and so it just doesn't seem politically urgent.
Well, and Michael, an easy way to understand how ludicrous it is what the Democrats are doing is just to flip the premise. Imagine if Donald Trump held an inquiry onto what happened on January 6th, and it was just Trump. To be honest, would the press give it any credibility? No, of course not.
Yeah.
But to be honest, if you wanted to have some...
Oh, what a stupid comparison. Yeah. We wouldn't give any credibility to the guy who incited the event that we're looking into having a hearing about the event. That's very different than a bipartisan group of legislators looking into the actions of the previous administration that was, in the executive branch. The heck is he talking about?
Something you would want to have both parties.
That's like, okay, I haven't had enough time to think about this analogy for it to be perfect, but that's like saying someone who murdered someone. It's the same thing to have them prosecute themselves than like a lifelong Democrat prosecute them. Let's say a Republican murders someone and then a person who's been a Democrat their whole lives prosecutes them, but they're a prosecutor. And then you say, this is the same thing as the murderer prosecuting themselves. Is it, Ted? Is it?
Parties. You would want to have free speech. You would want to have conflict. You would want to have debate. That's the method for ascertaining truth. Nobody in the press would give any credibility to a purely Republican assessment of January.
Andrew said if the roles were reversed, the GOP would definitely be going after the Democrats. If the roles were reversed, I don't even want to, like, if Black Lives Matter and Antifa storm the Capitol, and like some LGBTQ group, like a pride march, okay, a bunch of people in like leather, boom, storms the Capitol. First of all, they would all be dead. All of them. But let's set that aside, because that's, like, it depends. Maybe the police would have realized they were outnumbered in that scenario too. But if the Republicans in power, they would have probably called the National Guard instantly and been calling for all that type of stuff. So set that aside. Okay. First of all, they would have made that the only thing they spoke about for the next 30 years. You know, they stretched out Benghazi for pretty long. If the Democrats did January 6th, Lord have mercy. They would have never ended talking about that, which in some ways is fine. If you try to overturn democracy or like overturn a democratic process, okay, get pretty fed up about it if you're the opposing side that's for democracy. But because he's on their side, he's pretending like it was no biggie and the Democrats are making it way too big of a deal.
January 6th or anything else. I mean it, whatever you talk about, a purely Republican assessment gets no credibility. And that's not crazy because we have a partisan system. Both parties want to advance their narrative. And if you're an intelligent voter, look, as a consumer of news, I don't just read right-wing news. Right. I read left-wing news too, and I try to figure out the truth somewhere in the middle. When the Democrats and the corporate media are only spewing their propaganda, it's transparent.
Republicans compare January 6th to BLM riots all the time, yes. And I just want y'all to know, in case you don't know how to respond when people do that, because there's one way I hear people respond, which is less effective, but it's true. Okay, so let's say I'm talking about January 6th, and almost every time you talk with a conservative, if you describe how bad January 6th was, they'll say this. Yeah, but let's also talk about the riots during the summer of 2020, BLM riots. If you don't know how to respond to that, here's how. Well, first, let me say what I was going to say. A lot of people will go, okay, that's unrelated though. Let's talk about January 6th. And that's fair. Don't whataboutism me. Let's talk about what we want to talk about. But the most impactful response is there is a profound difference between pretty much every type of riot because, and what I'm about to say. So almost every type of riot is a very natural expression of a society in strife. Now, I'm not okay with destroying property. I'm not okay with any form of violence. None of that. It's horrible. Especially, you know, some of these riots led to the deaths of people. That's terrible. Bad. I'm serious. But riots are something that happen in developed countries all of the time. They're not tied to any larger issue. They can be, but my point is, every single riot doesn't need to be treated as an existential event because of what I'm about to say. In the January 6th scenario, that was a representation of a very large portion of our country believing that democracy should be ripped up into shreds. That's why January 6th is so important. January 6th is by no means the most destructive riot we've seen recently. Not even at all. It's by no means, the biggest killing event at all. We've seen a gazillion larger larger events that led to death than January 6th, since January 6th. That's not why it's bad at all. It's bad because the reason why they were going into the Capitol was because they believed the election was stolen because of the lies that a president was telling. And that president was directly undermining democracy. And he was okay if that riot was able to hypothetically get in and stop the legal proceedings that were going on. He would be great with that. And he was trying to do behind the scenes a very similar thing, which was get in the way of our lawful constitutional process. And that's why January 6th is so bad. It's not so bad because of the level of people who died, which is horrible. That's so sad. It's not so bad just because it was the Capitol. It's not so bad just because it was a riot. It's so bad because it's representative of such a large portion of our country caring less about the legitimacy of our democracy, and it got so far to the point where a certain sliver of that larger population was ready to enact violence. Hopefully that makes sense.
To everyone.
So that's why the comparisons to BLM riots is just a non-starter. Don't even talk to me. Was BLM trying to overthrow democracy? No. They were doing what tons of groups and tons of societies do when they're fed up about stuff. Now, it's never okay for, not never, I mean, if you're like, violence is sometimes okay, self-defense, stuff like that, but it's never okay to proactively go out and destroy property and hurt people, of course. But that wasn't representative of this larger belief that we should give up on our democratic process.
Now, speaking of Nancy Pelosi's missteps and transparency and other trans issues, Nancy Pelosi made a claim this past week on a television show that I will admit I don't regularly watch. She gave her theory on what America is all about. I'll give it to you in her own words.
Please give a warm drag race welcome, Nancy Pelosi. Oh my God! Welcome back.
My honor to be here. Your freedom of expression of yourselves in drag is what America is all
She
about.
went on RuPaul's Drag Race. That's so sweet. What the heck? AOC's been on there before. That was like an awesome episode. But that's so sweet.
Senator, I'm not a graduate of Harvard Law School. I've never clerked for the Supreme Court. I'm not a member of the United States Senate. In your estimation, is transvestitism what America is all about?
I kind of think Nancy may have missed some days in American history.
You guys are I'm sorry, I don't say this often because I want to explain why people are not intelligent and not just say it, but they're idiots, okay? You don't understand what freedom of expression means if you think that it has anything to do with one particular form of expression. So right there, he says, clearly she doesn't know what she's talking about, saying this is what America's all about because it's a drag race. But no, that's the point. Whether you like it or not, someone expressing themselves without violating someone else's rights is what America is about. America is about that freedom. And this is coming from the freaking party that calls himself all about freedom and stuff. What the heck? This is my point, guys. Don't take their talking points at face value. Don't believe they really are the party of family values. Don't really believe they are the family of God, why do I keep misspeaking? The party of freedom, liberty. Clearly not. They're pretending that Nancy Pelosi is off at all by saying that, look at this. You guys are doing something that a lot of our country still has an issue with. And I'm proud of you guys for it because this is America. This is the expression of someone's freedom right here. Doing something that isn't necessarily the most popular thing in the country. Now, I think drag races are dope, but they should absolutely believe that Nancy Pelosi's spot on. Listen, I disagree. I disagree with Nancy Pelosi on a lot of stuff. This is what they should say. I disagree with Nancy Pelosi on a lot of stuff. I won't necessarily go to that particular show, but she's right that America is all about this type of freedom. And they're expressing themselves in a way that I wouldn't. But I still respect that. But no, now just because it's some form of expression they don't like, it's stupid.
Like, look, you got a right to dress up any way you want. That's great. Knock yourself out.
There we go. Thank you.
But the idea, the last pod we did, we talked about
don't call it a pod.
The drag show for kids in Dallas.
Yeah.
This is another example of the Democratic Party going so extreme.
This isn't about the... What does a drag race in a random city have to do with the Democratic Party? The fact that the Democratic Party is saying, hey, maybe there's more important issues to talk about than a parent who feels comfortable taking their kid to something that not necessarily all parents would feel comfortable taking their kids to. But this is a point that was beautifully made. I think church can be a beautiful thing. Genuinely. And I think a lot of religious people are amazing. And they're the ones who, all the people I know who do like service for the country, nonprofit work and going out and feeding people who are hungry and all that. All the people I know are religious people. So amazing. But there's a particular group that is less amazing. And one of the examples of this is it's hilarious because they talk all this talk about, oh my gosh, they're taking kids to drag shows and blah, 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 and that's causing grooming or something. I can tell you there is a much higher likelihood that if you take your kid to a church, they'll get sexually assaulted or groomed than taking them to a drag show. Because at a drag show, you're at a big old fat public event where the kid and... No, I'm not even going down that road. Because the drag queens aren't wanting to groom your children. But also, you don't interact privately with drag queens at a drag show. Okay, so if there was some, one-off creep that was there, you're with your parents, you're fine. But churches, much higher likelihood you'll get sexually abused. Again, it's still a small percentage, and a lot of kids go to church, have a great time. I'm not saying this is like a church, all churches type thing. And I'll say it again, I think tons of religious people are amazing. I'm, religious. And this is just a true point. But again, I don't know if I would take my kids to a drag show, but that's because I wouldn't take them really to any, club, bar type event like that. But all the drag queens are doing is dancing. They don't, it's not a strip show. I don't know what their big issue is. It's just a man who's dressed up as a woman dancing. I don't see what's so horrible about that.
Like, look, if people want to dress in drag, that's fine. I'm quite libertarian about do what you want to do. But to claim that's what America's all about, I get it. The founding fathers did wear wigs, so she does have a point there. They were wearing wigs.
Oh my God, are you stupid? Are you just a stupid person? Because these... It has nothing to do with the particular form of expression. It's the fact that America is about that freedom to express. God, it's so stupid. I like that you always point out that you are discussing a subset of a certain group of people so precise. Thank you, Sean. I make a huge effort because it is much easier, and most left-wing commentators do this, and I love them to death still, but they do this. Way overgeneralize. And I think we're not going to be able to effectively make the change that we need to make if we aren't accurately analyzing what the other side is. And so one of the things that a lot of commentators do is they take a story of a very radical person that, in all honesty, is actually representative of a pretty large portion of our country, but still, and they don't give any caveat that there are rational people of that same group. An example of this is Republicans. An example of this is Christians. They'll say, here's a crazy Christian person. Look how crazy Christians are. And they won't explain but there's also amazing Christians. And we need those amazing Christians to be a part of our movement. And we need to recognize that for the sake of accuracy and, being factual, but then also for our own strategic ends. And I think one of the reasons that the left isn't as effective is we really do push away a lot of people before they can even hear our core values and our core ideas. Because if you listen to a progressive talk about their policy prescriptions, most Americans, even if they don't fully agree, will be like, that's pretty reasonable. A great example of this that we talk about on this stream all the time is, thank you, Catherine, that's so sweet, is healthcare. If I sit down with anybody, even the most right-wing people, I'll say, don't you agree that it's not a crazy opinion to have that we should have a similar system to every other developed country on the planet? We are the only country that is of our level of, that is comparable at all. We're not talking about third world countries, but first world countries, developed countries, that doesn't have a healthcare system that covers everyone. Don't you think that's a little weird, and that's a reasonable position to hold, that, hey, how about we also have one of those? And most, even conservatives, will be like, yeah, okay, that's fair, even though I don't believe that for whatever reason. But we scare them away before they can even hear us say that whenever we... a few different things. One of the things is we overgeneralize. So they hop on, let's say they hopped on my stream and I went, see, this is why all Republicans are monsters. Instantly, they're going to turn it off. Even though if they listen to my next sentence, it may be talking about healthcare, and they're like, oh, that's kind of reasonable. Maybe I'm less Republican than I thought. Or if we go if you'll notice, I don't call people terms that much. So I don't say idiot, racist, whatever, homophobe. Instead, I explain to you why this particular person might be, or this particular statement is. So I'll still prove the point that this person is racist, just without using these loaded terms, so that people watching don't get turned off when they're actually agreeing with what I'm saying.
But I'm not sure that's what Washington and Jefferson were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is such the dominant, the left-wing culture war is the Democrat Party. There was it is who they are and what they're driven by, and they keep going. It's not accurate to say that's what America's all about, but it is accurate to say that's what today's Democrat Party is all about.
I at least understand that the Democrats are making this philosophical claim that this is at least what the country should be all about. What I don't understand is How can Pelosi, with a straight face, make the historical claim that transvestitism, which was illegal, by the way, in lots of America throughout parts of the 19th century, in San Francisco, of all places, which has not exactly been promoted. I don't think it was part of the Shining City on a Hill speech. I don't think Governor Bradford was writing about his,
Wait, what? Did he just try to, oh my God. Did he just say, like, point to the fact that, I don't even know if the term he uses is appropriate anymore, but that being a drag queen was illegal in the 19th century, to say, like, that's why it's bad now or something. Yeah, you know what was also illegal? Interracial marriage. So what are you saying there, Mike? That's how you justify your opinion? It used to be illegal once. That's why it's stupid now.
Great passion for cross-dressing. How do you make the historic claim that actually America, it's not about apple pie or freedom or going west, young man? No, it's about dressing up like a lady.
What? Sorry, guys, I'm screaming a lot today. I'm really energetic. It's probably because whenever I do a live stream and I haven't eaten dinner yet, so I'm going off. I don't eat much during the day so that I can eat really big dinners. It's stupid, but I like it. And I'm really hungry. I get really happy and excited because it means I still get to eat. And so then I'm like fantasizing about what I'm going to eat after this live stream. So that's why I'm really happy, I think. Plus, I'm going on a trip that I'm really excited about on Tuesday. So that's exciting. But he said, she's saying it's about that, but not that it's about, apple pie or freedom. Wait, but freedom, that's what she's talking about. Freedom of expression. That's exactly what she's talking about. That is what America is about. Freedom of expression. And being a drag queen is a great example of that, because you are expressing a less common maybe feeling or identity than most people. Most people don't have the urge to be a drag queen, but it's something some people want to do. And freedom of expression is beautiful because it allows those people to do it, even though they're not the norm or whatever. And that's what's beautiful about it.
Well, and there's a richer irony. So she has a tiny leg to stand on, in that she starts off by saying freedom of expression.
Oh, he's figuring it out.
And you can make an argument that freedom of expression is what America's all about. But the irony is Nancy Pelosi doesn't believe in freedom of expression. Like, today's Democrat Party has abandoned free speech. So she literally means only if you want to dress up as a woman.
You're right.
Is what America's all about. But if you want to make a movie asking what is a woman, that is not what America's all about. So it is quite amazing. Nancy Pelosi leads a Democrat Party that wants big tech to censor.
Democratic Party. None of them say it correctly.
That wants views that they disagree with silenced, that wants to ban conservative speakers from campus. So
there's the Republican and the Democratic Party. You can be a Democrat, but you can't be a Democrat Party.
I'm glad she's acknowledging freedom of expression is important, but, I wish there were...
I love how he got the point at the end. Like, Michael Knowles set this whole story up, and Ted Cruz is like, I'm going to have to wiggle out of this because Nancy Pelosi made a really good point there, and I'm going to pretend that she's actually anti-freedom of expression. That's why this is a bad clip.
Democrats in Congress that still believe that.
Oh, of course, because when Pelosi uses the phrase freedom of expression, and really it's true of Democrats broadly, all they really seem to mean is replacing our taboos with their taboos and replacing our standards with their standards. There's this major Supreme...
Yeah, that's exactly right. We think that everyone should be free to love who they want to love, express themselves how they want to express themselves, be the identity that they are. That's the taboos that we want to have or whatever. You guys think that you can freely express yourself as long as it's not against our particular ideology. And if it is, we're going to bully the living heck out of you and say that you're violating some truth of your belief about God.
Supreme Court case of a high school football coach who just said a prayer on his knee by himself alone on the football field after the games, and the school fired him for it. They were so angry at this.
Is this dude even refuting any points? J-Pocalypse, are you talking to me? Because if you are and you haven't been watching the stream very long, or I guess if you are and you've been watching a lot of the stream, then I'm confused. If you just hopped on at my Democratic rant, then maybe that makes sense. But if you're not talking about me, that would be ideal, because otherwise that's kind of a dumb point. I refute lots of points whenever I do these.
This individual act of expression. So I don't think Pelosi is defending that, but to your point, they're only defending this sort of thing. And actually it ties right in with the big story out of Hollywood, which is that there's a new movie, it's a new Toy Story movie about Buzz Lightyear. And for some reason, Disney felt it was very, very important to include lesbian toys kissing in the Buzz Lightyear movie. Meanwhile, they fire Tim Allen, who originated the role of Buzz Lightyear. They replace him with, frankly, probably a more expensive actor. What is going on? Do our kids, is it so important that our kids see lesbian toys smooch?
Well, I got to say, Michael, I think it is remarkable that the verdict.
I grew up watching lots of animated stuff and lots of kids shows. And in them, there were often little kiss scenes. And they were all between a man and a woman. Or I guess a girl and a boy if it was kids shows. Or sometimes it was, adults in a kids show. So man and woman. Male and female. I think it's fair in some of these kids programs to show that, hey, there's other people in the world. Number one, be prepared to love them when you get out in the world. Or if this is you, it can help you have a little bit of understanding that you're not so alone. Because you saw it in Buzz Lightyear. That would have helped me growing up if there were more animated and kids shows that sent the message of it's okay to be who you are.
Podcast seems to be driving Hollywood's agenda. You and I sat at the University of Alabama for our live campus tour, and we were talking about woke Disney. And I observed, I said, look, these lunatics, they
Oh, woke Disney. One sec. Give me 1 second. I'm not finding it. Let me play this for you guys.
They want to see Mickey and Pluto going at it. And the press lost their mind.
Wow.
And then what do? Boom. The next movie they come out, Buzz Lightyear. What do we need? We need lesbian toys. Now, never mind that the last time I checked, most toys are kind of androgynous. They're usually without genitalia unless you're
a little flat
shopping
on
it.
This is so good.
Yeah,
So they just talked about woke Disney. My sister went on a trip to Disneyland and got me this just to piss off the Republicans. Look at that. Their Pride collection. Oh. Not too shabby. It's kind of cute though, huh? So yeah. I can wear that to piss off Republicans now. And that is good. Now, you say, I know what you just said. If you're a Republican and you're watching this, 1 sec. I look weird. If you're a Republican, you're watching this, it's like, why would Luke want to piss off Republicans? That's so partisan and so stupid. Well, I don't want to just piss you off. That's mean and stupid. And I love Republicans too. What I want to do is point out to you through the tool of pissing you off how absurd it is that you care that an organization is being supportive towards a group of people, whether or not you understand why people are gay, even if you don't get it, or why people are trans. you should still respect their ability to be who they want to be in a free country.
Like it's just, but it is the commitment to culture is, and you know, this movie has now been banned, I think, in 14 countries. The UAE has banned it. There are countries in the Middle East. There are countries in Asia. There's significant discussion. 100
Savages, you are being just too complimentary of me. I can't take all of this love. Lesbian toys kissing, no worse than the neighborhood boys laying a naked can on naked Barbie? Wait, was that a thing? That wasn't in a movie. I'm sure that wasn't in a movie. Was that just like at home? That was your earliest form of porn, was Barbie and Ken getting it on like Donkey Kong?
That China is not going to allow the movie in because of this scene. And I got to say, it's a wild twist where Hollywood has been willing to grovel to China, to let China censor its movies, to embrace anti-Americanism, to avoid any criticism of China because they want to get access to the Chinese movie market. But when it comes to their culture agenda, apparently now suddenly they've discovered, all right, give up the money because lesbian toys are more important. And I must say, it brings a whole new meaning to the phrase "to infinity and beyond."
Yeah, that's sort of like the slippery slope, Senator. You know, it seems that we never get to the bottom of the slippery slope. Maybe that's because the slippery slope goes to infinity and beyond.
Why do toys have to go at it?
I don't know, Ted. Ask all of the other Disney movies where toys, not toys necessarily, but where characters have romantic relations like that, or romantic interactions. I don't know, Ted. This is a thing that's been happening in kids shows forever, but it's just always been between straight couples. So they're like, hey, we're going to throw in a gay couple. Cool.
It just, you could do without... we don't need to see. It's the sexualization of kids that Hollywood embraces, and it is a political agenda.
You know what? I'm so sick of this.
That is all consuming. And
one of the points I heard someone make that is so true is stop using these terms when they're not real at all, because you're taking away from the very real problem we have of actual kids being sexualized, actual grooming, actual abuse, because you're calling every single person who's gay and mentions it a groomer, and every single effort by a corporation or a movie company to be inclusive, the sexualization of kids. It's not. Okay, so stop using those frickin' terms, because you are taking away from the reality and the weight of actual sexual abuse that is way too prevalent and goes on way too much in our society. But you don't actually care about that issue, because you're acting like all of these non-issues are related in any way and taking away from the very real fact that we need to address a real issue. But that has nothing to do with the LGBTQ community or Disney trying to include the LGBTQ community. That has to do with a bunch of other reasons why sexual abuse happens a lot to children, especially to children. But they clearly don't care about that issue if they're pretending that being LGBTQ and allowing pop culture to accept that is sexualizing kids.
And look, they fired Tim Allen. They replace him with Chris Evans, Captain America. So I mean, it is American icons driving an agenda that astonishingly enough, for the first time, matters more to Hollywood than money.
Well, I think this is why it's...
This is stupid, too. No, Ted. It's because the country doesn't like your ideology anymore. Some of them do, but not enough of them. Like, all these corporations who are being LGBTQ inclusive and these, like, production companies, it's because the majority of the country wants that. That's why. They will make more money. It's all about money for them, of course. They're corporations. That's fine. That's like the profit motive you have in capitalism. Okay. And so in that market, these companies are seeing, oh, us being pro LGBTQ is good for our bottom line because more people will buy from us, more people will watch our movies if we are. So no, it is about money for them, and it is a representation that your ideology is on the way out. Bye-bye. The majority of Americans want to see the companies they patronize be inclusive and be American and actually care about real freedom. And real freedom is allowing identities that you don't necessarily understand or relate to be loved and accepted in society.
Important that Allen's getting dropped for Chris Evans is you might say, well, maybe Tim Allen was just asking for too much money. And so it's they're
maybe it's because Chris Evans on a movie poster, like the name is much more recognizable these days than Tim Allen. More people will have their interest piqued in this era if Chris Evans is in a movie.
They're moving on to a cheaper actor. I suspect Chris Evans is demanding a higher contract right now than Tim Allen is. He's a major movie star, young and right in the prime of his career. And so the only explanation I can think of is that Tim Allen is an outspoken conservative. Chris Evans is a huge lib from everything that I can tell. And so even more to your point, the studios are willing to lose money if it advances their cultural agenda. And speaking of people losing money, Senator, it's not just Hollywood losing money. You and I and all the rest of America is losing money right now because inflation is through the roof and our president is blaming Republicans.
You know, the White House has one talking point. I didn't do it. Not my fault. It's Republicans' fault. It's Putin's fault. It's any...
Also, just as a side note, since they brought up Chris Evans... Oh, I love how this category of photos of him is just beautiful. Look at him. Oh, that's not him. How could you not want him in your movie? Like, what the heck? These are horrible photos. Whatever, you get the point. Actually, no, you don't get the point. I promise I didn't search that. I clicked on a category. That would be so weird. I searched Chris Evans, and then at the bottom here it said beautiful was an option to click on. Whatever. You guys don't believe me. I don't care. We're just having a little Chris Evans moment here, guys. If you just hopped in. I mean, come on. Let's be real. Come on. How could you not want him to play Buzz Lightyear? Anyways.
Anybody's fault but Joe Biden. There's a reason Biden's approval rating is in the 30s. Because people recognize that's just not credible. To watch this White House try to blame everything, watching Biden's energy...
I promise you. You know what? No, y'all don't believe me. I'm going to show you exactly what happened. Ready? Chris Evans. You go to images. Wait, what? Oh God, I look like such a liar right now. At the bottom it said beautiful, an option to look at, and I was like, oh perfect, this will convey the point that I was trying to make, is if it's like in the beautiful category. Oh, this is embarrassing. Oh, this is so embarrassing. Okay, whatever. Now it just looks like I searched Chris Evans beautiful. Well, we live and we learn.
Secretary go on TV and saying, Biden's trying to do everything he can to lower gas prices. Well, yeah, except allow people to drill for oil and gas.
Oh, Cody, I'm not embarrassed about the fact of me thinking he's beautiful. I'm saying I didn't type into Google Chris Evans beautiful. I searched Chris Evans, and then at the bottom it said one of the categories of photos was beautiful, so I clicked on that to see some photos. I'm very proud of the fact that I think he's beautiful, of course.
Like other than that, I mean, you literally have had for a year and a half an unrelenting war on oil and gas production in the United States. They keep doubling down. They keep bizarrely, Biden is going to be flying to Saudi Arabia to kiss Saudi Arabia's behind after he's been attacking Saudi Arabia for a year and a half and alienating them, because he wants the Saudis to produce more oil. He wants Venezuela to produce more oil. He wants Iran to produce more oil. He wants everyone to produce more oil except Americans.
Yeah.
And it is, he believes that he can just convince the American people it's everybody else's fault.
It seems like they're deflecting a little bit, Senator, and it's actually a type of deflection that you first called my attention to right in the earliest days of this podcast, when we were in the middle of the night in the bunker in the middle of Washington, D.C., which is the Democrats' line here is inflation is not entirely Joe Biden's fault. Which, of course, inflation is not entirely Joe Biden's fault, but that doesn't mean that it's not at all his fault or even largely his fault. And you can point to the reasons that he's driving inflation, the ones that you've named. One, he's not allowing us to produce energy. Two, he in many ways caused the war in Ukraine, at least according to...
What? Okay, just to quickly summarize the inflation stuff, yes, it's a very valid point to say that Biden is not to blame for inflation and gas prices, when the way, if you understand, inflation works, when we started seeing a lot of inflation was right after a pandemic and an economic crash where we had to spend a bunch of money. Most of that was spent under Trump. So then that has a ripple effect that's going to cause inflation afterwards. And so that afterwards period, after Trump, and then at the very beginning of Biden when he passed his rescue plan, then we had a lot of, extra money in the economy that caused inflation. But Biden's merely in power while that's happening. Now, could he do more to ameliorate it? Maybe. And then in related to gas prices, same thing. Demand went all the way away. Supply chains got messed up. It kicked all back into gear. They haven't recovered. And also a bunch of other reasons, but none of those are like Biden policy related. But whatever.
President Zelensky's take on things. Three, he's continued to lock down the economy in many ways that I don't think is very conducive to economic growth. The list goes on and on.
He keeps spending a crap ton of money. Like at the end of the day.
When? What? An American Rescue Plan that was similar in size to Trump's, I think maybe smaller, at least definitely smaller than the combination of Trump's two packages. But then he also passed an infrastructure bill that was definitely not big enough to cause inflation. So I don't know what all the spending is that he's talking about. He proposed a lot of spending with Build Back Better, but it didn't pass. So
trillions and trillions of dollars. You're right. It's not entirely Joe Biden's fault. It's also Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's and every damn Democrat that votes for $1 trillion here and $1 trillion there and spends and spends and spends and spends. And actually, so one form of inflation they call shrinkflation. You notice you go in and like packages are all smaller in the stores. So you buy Doritos and you have 5 fewer chips in the bag. So maybe CNN was right because they might start selling gas by the quart. And we're not far away from $2 a quart for gasoline. And so it's a smaller unit. Like a good question to ask if you're watching a CNN broadcast. And I pick on CNN in particular because they actually used to be something of journalists. They were bad journalists, but they were trying to be journalists.
Right.
Now they're just shameless shills. But a question that's worth asking if you watch a news broadcast is, would a word of this have been different if the Biden White House had written the script? And if the answer is no, it's not journalism.
Right.
This is not a complicated...
Okay, it depends on the issue. If the Biden White House would say the sky is blue and CNN says the sky is blue, then yeah, they're going to say the same thing word for word. But on a lot of things, CNN doesn't give the most favorable coverage. Now, granted, they are more pro, Democrat than they are Republican, but a lot of times, they've talked a lot about gas prices. If they were just trying to help the Biden White House, they wouldn't press so hard on that, and they wouldn't give so much airtime to the problems that Biden is overseeing.
Concept, but CNN and MSNBC seem very confused at the concept.
Well, speaking of perhaps unethical ways to make money, like just having the government print endless amounts of cash, there was a mailbag question that came in. I mentioned it to you a little bit earlier because I didn't know anything about it, but I would love your take on it if you have formed one. This is from Chris. I believe Chris is, or I'm sorry, the question is from Jonathan, but it's about someone who is one of your constituents. Question is, the Twitch streamer Asmon Gold said he reached out to Senator Cruz's office about regulating loot boxes in video games. Where does the senator stand on loot boxes? I know that those are all words, and I understand they have been strung together in an English sentence, but I don't really understand what it means semantically together.
Look, I'm happy to engage in a conversation with him. I'm happy to see what he has to say.
I think that's a joke. But as I just put at the bottom of the screen, to anyone who's watching right now and is not already a patron, please do help out. And you get bonus content once a week. I'm going to put out tonight the bonus show, most recent bonus show. And you pretty much go to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. Sign up. You can just do $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever you want. And then you get access to a weekly extra 30 minutes to an hour of content. And my eternal gratitude, because it helps me keep the show alive. So please do that.
Say on it. As I understand it, the concern he's raising is a concern about gambling and kids. And I will say...
Oh, it's real money kids put into games? Okay, that's actually something we should maybe look at.
It is certainly true.
I don't know anything about this.
Social media, online environments, including video games, are designed to be addictive. Now, I'm something of a gamer. I'm not a gamer like hardcore Twitch streamers, and I don't do the massive multiplayer games.
Not yet, Senator, but I'll tell you, I bet you never thought that you were going to be a top podcaster. So who knows? We may have to launch the Verdict Twitch stream and start playing Pac-Man or whatever the kids are playing these days.
Not Pac-Man.
That could well be. And you remember when you and I did Dave Rubin's podcast, we did a Twitch stream on playing, I think it was Nintendo that he had, and we did right. That. And if I remember right, I beat his ass. I'm pretty sure that's right. And if not, that's the story I'm going with.
Mm-hmm.
Look, they're different components of it. In games, I'll tell you, I don't like it when you can buy in-game items and sort of make your character stronger or get advantages. Now, I'll confess, when I play some games, I'll sometimes buy it because it is more fun if suddenly your character has a lot more great stuff that would take you 6 months or a year to build up. So sometimes I'll spend $20 and buy a treasure chest full of coins because then
if I see in a show in a game, there's an option to purchase your way to like a better, more successful outcome in the game, I have to stop. I cannot play games like that because I will be way too tempted whenever you're working. I remember Clash of Clans. You remember that game? I had to not play it because there was an option to buy whatever the currency, like elixir or whatever, gold, that would help you move faster through the game. And I am not disciplined enough with that type of stuff to not just like chuck way too much money at it because I'm, lazy and don't want to actually do the work.
Can spend them to get cool things in the game. I think it is a greater concern when you're dealing with kids, when you're dealing with minors who have a potential, number one, to spend a whole lot of money. And, with some of the loot boxes, there's a fair amount of randomness that you could get a lot of great stuff or some lousy stuff. And so I guess that's the argument that it's gambling. I'll confess I'm open to hearing arguments on this, but I approach the issue with a pretty strong libertarian bent. So I'd like to not see kids exploited and harmed. And so I'd be interested in his...
Yeah, I think the only way you can do this I would have to think about it, but I think the main way you could avoid younger kids getting exploited through spending too much money is age limits on games that have those functions, but those don't work because you can just punch in that you're a different age. So
views, but at the same,
you're playing Clash of Clans right now. Dope. I was looking for the super chat button, but there isn't one. I'm having a blast hanging out, Luke and friends. Yes, so I do understand, like, the ask of saying, can you get on a Patreon is a different type of ask than just asking people to, like, a one-time, super chat where they can say something. And so I really, really want to have that capability. The reason why it's not there now is I haven't gotten monetized, but I mentioned at the beginning of the stream that I just passed the threshold of watch hours you need. And so I applied, we've seen all that growth recently, so it shot up my watch hours, and now I'm qualified, and you can, after you're qualified, apply to be monetized, and then within a number of days, they'll approve you, and then I'll have super chats and stuff like that. So once that is available, it should be easy and more, quick to support the stream in the moment / put something on my radar that I would absolutely respond to if it was in super chat form. Yeah, as Jared said, it's coming soon.
Same time, I'm not sure that the federal government really has a dog in the fight, that if people want to, in a video game, spend money on stuff in the game, I think my instincts are probably that may not be a great choice if you're spending massive amounts of money in games, but I'm not sure the federal government has a role preventing you from doing that.
Well, we'll have to look into loot boxes more. Maybe I'll brush up on my Donkey Kong or, whatever's really hip right now. And I hope that we can figure out. Maybe we'll have to
I'm quite
get back
confident
and forth.
it's not Donkey Kong.
Is it not? Okay, I'm a little behind the curve, but there were no loot boxes in Donkey Kong too. So we'll hear from Osman Gold. And
I will note. So I actually just watched again Ready Player One. Did you ever see this movie?
No, I heard it was great, but I didn't catch it.
I've seen it several times, but I just happened to have rewatched it last week, and it's a really good movie about
it's almost done, guys.
Virtual reality and people going into the game and a whole alternative world in the game, but people amass money in virtual reality, and it ends up for many people subsuming the world. Look, there are hard challenges. We're not yet to the dystopic world of Ready Player One, but we might be. We're on a path towards that, and escapism. There are times when escapism can be valuable, but it also,
the virtual reality thing freaks me out. Like, not the base level where you're just have some goggles and you're shooting around, but like the deep where, like he's mentioning, you could really find yourself where you're living more in your virtual reality world than in real life, and like you make it all perfect for you and stuff. That just freaks me out.
Is going to raise all sorts of challenges and challenges that can spill over from the virtual world to the real world, and how those intersections happen. We're going to have to learn more about them.
And specifically on this issue of the loot boxes and gaming, a lot of the question involves the role of parents, and parental rights is a big topic these days. And I believe parental rights is the topic of your conversation on the Cloakroom with Liz Wheeler. Is that?
All right, looks like they're about to start plugging stuff, so we're good on that.
Joining me now is a member of the January.
That's the next thing we're gonna watch. Okay, cool. So do this. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we will be watching Donald Trump's speech this Friday. I was gonna watch the Jamie Raskin interview, but that's on MSNBC. I could probably get copyrighted. You know what? With all the copyright stuff we had recently, I'm not gonna do that. We'll go ahead and just jump to Trump's speech. I think I put it in my watch later folder. This stream is litty. Thank you, Zeke. No, you are. I don't know why I said that so weird. You are. Let's see. I started doing this thing to people. I did it before, but I've restarted it. And it's so ad shading, I know. But it's also really satisfying. Where I go, if like, you know when you say something and someone just clearly doesn't think about what you just said before asking a question. So to be like, you know, what do you think about that? I'm like, I literally just said something that would have answered the question you just asked. And so I do this thing now where I say, think about what I just said and see if you can answer your own question. And so many times people are like, oh, blah, 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 and they answer it for themselves. But like, that's such a douchey thing to do, but it really satisfies me for some reason. So there we go. Trump speech, Nashville. Okay, here we go. This is the stuff right here. Right here. Oh no. It's panned all the way to my right ear. Oh, that's horrible. What the heck? Is there any way I can change that? Like make this mono? That's horrible. Austin clearly not listening. Is when he says I was gonna say. Maybe I can set my desktop here. Let me try this, y'all. This is advanced stuff right here. Advanced audio properties. Make it mono. Boom. Wait, would that do it? I think so. But then would I still have to listen to it through one ear?
Thank you very much.
Okay, y'all tell me if you can hear this in just one ear, if anyone has headphones on, or in both ears.
Well, I want to thank you. What a beautiful turnout this was. And Ralph, for your extraordinary leadership and unyielding commitment to our values. We have great values. And I want to thank Ralph. He does an incredible job, and I'm thrilled to be back. So
Andrew, how about now? Is it panned in the center? Because I set... Yeah, if I set it to mono, it should just go straight. Now both ears. Cool. All right. Now only I have to listen to it with one ear. That's annoying. So, okay. This is on Friday, Nashville, right after all of these bombshells come out of the January 6th hearings. Let's see what he has to say.
So many proud, hardworking patriots who love our country, cherish our history, and live by those timeless words of our national motto, "In God We Trust." Together we're going to fight for a future that is pro-family, pro-faith, pro-freedom, pro-life, pro-police, pro-Second Amendment, pro-science, pro-woman.
Thank you so much, Sean Dory, who just became a patron. Guys, you didn't tell me that you can't see Trump. What the heck? What are we doing? Sean Dory, thank you so much for becoming a patron. I can't believe y'all are just watching me, listening to... That's so weird.
And 100% pro-American.
This is a crappy feed. Let me see if I can find something else.
I want to thank Faith and Freedom Coalition Executive Director Tim Head. Does a great job. American First
It's a weird
Policy
name.
Institute President, our friend Brooke Rollins. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke.
A friend of mine, Dr. Alveda King. Dr. King. Where is Dr. King? Scott Turner, really dynamic, young guy, big future. And the many spiritual leaders here today, including Pastor Paula White, Apostle Dwayne Harden, Bishop Garland Hunt Sr., I know your son. I just endorsed your son and he won big, by the way. He's great. What a great son. Pastor Adelet Kibru, Bishop Dean Nelson.
Hey Luke, what did you use on your vocals on that song? Did you use a gate reverb or something else? Sounded lovely. Thank you. I put just the like audio software I use has some options to use some effects. Nothing special. I no longer have like my nice setup.
Dr. Stellar Emmanuel. We have incredible people. Kevin Kreisman, Pastor Dale Walker, Pastor Cash Luna, Pastor Scott McLeod, Pastor Tommy Vallejo, Pastor Dionise Morales, a friend of mine, a powerful guy, an incredible speaker and pastor and believer. He is just something very special. Pastor Jensen Franklin. Where is he? Where is he? Incredible job he does. And countless other conservative leaders and distinguished guests. It's really been an incredible group. And, you know, politically in the audience, we have some wonderful people. Senator Tim Scott, Senator Marsha Blackburn, Representative Michael Waltz, Senator Lindsey Graham, Senator Rick Scott. That's why we have a Tim Scott, who's phenomenal. What a job he did. And we have a Rick Scott. Lieutenant Governor, oh, this guy.
Let me see if this feed might be better. Whoop.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
Yeah.
the founder and chairman.
Dr. King. People, Kevin Waltz, Senator Lindsey Graham, and you just heard Jim Jordan. This all send 25 million text messages and distribute voter guides to an incredible 100,000 churches. That's a lot of churches. With your help, we're going to ensure the biggest midtown. This is going to be the biggest turnout in midterm history. We think without question, and it's going to have conservative Christians all over the place.
What's the audio software? It's actually just a free software called Reaper.
Everyone in this room is gathered here today because we're all committed to the same key beliefs and the same core values. We believe that the Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution represent the principle of human civilization.
Oh yeah, so to the people who are new here, I used to be a musician. I mean, I'm a musician still, but I used to like do that as a thing, a pursuit. But then I changed and started doing political commentary. So I don't actually put out music anymore, but I wrote a little song for the shooting in Uvalde. But my primary thing is political commentary now.
Our founding documents are not a source of shame. They are a source of great pride. We believe the United States of America is the greatest and most virtuous republic in the history of the world. We're going to keep it that way. We believe in law and order, and we know that the Constitution means what it says, as written. We reject censorship, blacklisting, and cancel culture because we know that the lifeblood of...
Do you, Trump? Do you? Becoming the guy who blacklists any person who won't admit that the election, or who won't falsely say the election was stolen. Really? No, this is not live. This is from Friday.
A free society is free speech. We don't have free speech very much in this country anymore. If you don't have free speech, you don't have a country. We know that religious freedom is the foundation of all freedom because we know that our rights and liberties come straight from the hand of our Creator. We believe, that's right. We believe that America is a sovereign nation with a sovereign people.
Ray, are you saying that for real? Because if you are, I would love for you to come on stream. I can send you my Discord thing. I would love to talk with you about that. That'd be fun. Let me know. No. Ah!
Ladies and gentlemen.
Tim was trying to help at time. Terrible. But Mike was afraid of whatever he was. Heard me calling Mike Pence a wimp. Now, where's the camera? Oh, there it is. Afraid of being impeached. He didn't try and make them sound like that was that might have been the calmest speech I think I've ever made. 5 seconds.
Okay, so this is the main part I want to watch, is him talking about January 6th.
Clip where they got a little tired. Nobody's ever done this before. They are knowingly spinning a fake and phony narrative. Lie is actually the big lie in reverse. It's true. Now think of how bad a...
This is going to be interesting. Let's see.
We also want low taxes. We want few...
After he gets through the January 6th stuff, we'll turn it off. So we'll just be watching today, specifically his response to January 6th. Yeah, Ray, I really want to talk with you. I'm a nice guy, I promise. Don't get confused by my Doug debate. I know Doug, sort of, so that's why I'm more aggressive. I'll be nice to you.
Attacking the rights of parents to raise their own children.
I can't see past one of my monitors.
I think this group likes God a lot.
Yeah, Trump does
look green. These are the values that sustain our movement, and these are the values that sustain...
Guys, Ray, please say something in the darn chat. I never know why people do this. They'll come in the chat and they're all like confident and stuff, and they'll put a bunch of things proudly, and then the second I ask, hey, like, you want to talk? They just go silent. It's so confusing.
Our nation, but today each of these principles is under tremendous threat, a threat like never before.
I'm so hungry.
Everything we hold dear, every last tenet of American...
I can't prove it. You just find things suspicious. Interesting. Are you a conservative, J-Pocalypse? Huh. Well, one of the things I don't love doing is when people will pretend they have some big disagreement with me and then get on and I'll explain it to them, explain my point, and they'll be like, yeah, that's fair. And I'm like, well, that's boring. Like, either I want to have a productive conversation where we both know that we're trying to just think out ideas, or if you come on saying you like want to disagree with me, then it's really weird if I make like my first 2 points and you're like, yeah, that's all fair. I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, I kind of agree with you now. It's like, okay, well, that's stupid.
Tradition is under merciless assault from the radical left.
Yeah, Ray, if you're still watching, I just lost all respect for you. That's so lame. Really? You're going to be like, oh, in the chat and then just completely disappear? That's crazy. What's for dinner? Oh, I don't know. I'm so hungry. Probably something really unhealthy.
These people are taking a sledgehammer
Chinese takeout
to the
sounds so good.
foundations of our free society, trying to destroy freedom of speech, trying to crush organized religion, you know that, trying to shred our Constitution, trying to demolish the rule of law, and even attacking the rights of parents to raise their own children the way they want them raised. As I've said before, the greatest danger to America is not our enemies from the outside, as powerful as they may be, and they get more and more powerful because we allowed that to happen. The greatest danger to America is the destruction of our nation from the people from within. And you know the people I'm talking about. That is why this November we're going to stand up to this left.
Is that the same Ray? Wait, I thought it was... Oh, here we go. Ray, the election was stolen, yes. And then over here he said, I give you a response why it was stolen. No, but I'm asking if you would want to come on and talk about it. Because I think what happens a lot of times is people, you know, get in their echo chambers. And so it's really important to me that I stay grounded with what people believe and let them talk. They changed local voting laws to make the election go their way. The dirty Dems did. Did they? Did they, Ray? The dirty Dems. If you're watching Trump, you should eat McDonald's. Oh, guys, I know McDonald's is bad for you, but the times that I've had it recently-ish was so amazing. Because I hadn't eaten it in forever, and then I was on this really long road trip, and I couldn't find anything. I was starving, and so I ate McDonald's, and it was so good. And it sent me into a spiral where I crave it now. It's horrible.
Left-wing fascism, and we're going to take back our freedom. We're going to take back our country in November. The radical left movement that is attacking our nation is driven by a spirit of anger and hatred that most of us can barely comprehend or understand. Did you ever see such hatred toward us? And all we want to do is a good job. We want nice homes. We want great education for our children. We want strong...
Yeah, it's definitely the left who's the hateful ones. Oh my God, it's too funny. Our whole movement is like, hey, can we just not have people dying of preventable diseases that could be prevented if they had universal health care? Not diseases, preventable medical conditions. Can we just not hate people for being gay? Can we just not prevent people from being the identity that they are? Like, okay, and then y'all are like, rah, no! And then that's when we get more aggressive. Quarter pounder with cheese is legit. Stop. I literally just felt my stomach go, oh, that sounds so good. They apparently fancified it a while back. It's so good. And the fries, those salty fries. Here, 1 second. We just have to have a McDonald's moment. McDonald's cheeseburger. Oh, ew. That's a gross photo. Here we go. That looks so good, but don't eat it. It's not good for you.
Military, we want strong police. We want not to defund the police, and you see what happens. We also want low taxes. We want few regulations. We want so many things, all of which we had just a year and a half ago. These extremists are consumed by resentment, envy, intolerance, bigotry, malice, and even rage against nature itself. This is not just a political...
Hey, Z, it looks a lot like that, honestly. It looks pretty fake. That's the dangerous part, is it looks like this isn't natural.
...problem. This is a spiritual problem. True. For the radical left, politics has become their religion. It has warped their sense of right and wrong. They don't have a sense of...
Ray, do you just mean the vote by mail stuff? Because if it's all legal voters, then awesome. It just means more people participated in our process. And that is what the right has failed to prove, that any significant amount of people who weren't legally allowed to vote voted. So yeah, you could say, oh, it sucks that vote by mail maybe helped Biden, but the only reason it did is because Trump railed against it. If he didn't do that, then usually Republicans vote by mail a lot too. So, but in general, it's like, regardless of how they change the voting laws, because, you know, states can do that, as long as it's not against their constitution, then if they changed the laws and more people voted because of it, and you aren't able to prove that any of those people were, or any significant amount of them were illegitimate, then awesome. That means more people participated in our voting process. I love that.
Right and wrong. True and false, good and evil.
The Robert Smith, that's so true. He'll be reading and he'll be like, and they want to steal from us each part of the American promise. That's That's so true. Like, I'll read it and realize that's a good statement on the teleprompter there. It's like, no, dude, you're supposed to be saying that. What the heck? I think there's easier ways to have fraudulent votes being counted, especially if those who counted are biased and or corrupt. But that's my point. Show me one scrap of evidence that any of the people counting them were corrupt.
You saw the Russia hoax that we all went through for 2.5 years. I watched this Adam Schiff the other day, Shifty Schiff. He's nothing. He's nothing. We call him watermelon head. He's a perfect shape of it.
That's so true.
But I watched him for 2.5 years stand up at a podium just like this or stand in front of the press. It is terrible what President Trump has done with his relationship with Russia. I'm saying, Russia, what the hell do I have to do with Russia? This went on for 2.5 years. And it turned out to be a hoax. It's been...
Well, not everyone deserves to vote in the L. What? Such as felons? Yeah, and... Well, I think if you're out of jail, you should be able to vote. But I agree right now in a lot of places, maybe everywhere, felons aren't allowed to vote. And show me any example of a bunch of felons voting. And the reason why I say a bunch or like significant amounts is because in every election, there will be some one-off people who try to get away with stuff. In this election, most of the stories that came to some prominence were actually Republicans. But regardless, you know, people will try to go vote sometimes, and they're not supposed to. And they might try to vote twice, whatever. But all those people get prosecuted, and there's no evidence of like this broad movement that could have any effect on the election. Yeah, I don't see why their voting rights should be... Like, if they serve their time, they're no longer within the prison system. They're a felon now. Okay, let them vote. Like, they're a part of our society too. The reason why you shouldn't vote while you're in prison is you're not really... And honestly, you could make an argument why you should be able to vote. But I think the argument people would make is like, you're not really a part of society anymore. We're taking you out of society temporarily or maybe forever. So there's no reason for you to have a say in what society does. But if you're out, even if you're a felon, you should have a say. We shouldn't take away your right to vote just because you were in jail at some point.
Now revealed. Some of the papers have already, some of the media's already admitted it. There'll be a lot of litigation. There's going to be tremendous litigation. 2.5 years actually causing us danger aside from everything else, but causing us great danger. I'll never forget when this guy, he knew it was a fake story. I'll never forget when he stood up at the microphone and said, Donald Trump Jr.
I love, see again, Ray, I don't understand people like you. Very confident in chat, but that's it. So, no significant amount of felons or illegal immigrants were counted. That's just not at all borne out in any of the evidence that we have available. But honestly, I don't know. I keep saying come on stream. It might be a little bit... Trump rally versus Biden rally gave bad optics. That's true. Like, and one of the things people will say is that, you know, it was a pandemic, so Biden did a good thing by having, you know, small rallies. But I'm not someone who's going to deny that Trump could draw a bigger crowd than Biden. Of course he could. But as we understand in many cases, Bernie drew a bigger crowd than all the other Democratic primary candidates, and he still lost. So just how many of your people are motivated to go to a rally is very different than cast a ballot in your name. But I agree that confuses people where it's like, well, but look, Trump looked so popular because like his rallies were huge, which compared to normal presidential candidates, his rallies are pretty big. Maybe not so much anymore. I don't really know, but definitely during campaign season they were. If you are a illegal, okay, a couple things. First of all, there's no illegal, and even if we did use that terminology, it would be an illegal. But whatever. We also, I don't know what you mean by illegal. If you mean an undocumented immigrant, then I get what you're saying, I guess. Waiting for citizenship, then they counted your vote in 2020. I don't know at all the specifics based on the past things you said in chat that were false, that I've seen the evidence being false. Then I I'm not going to believe what you just said. But if like that came from a trusted person, I would be willing to definitely, or even from you, I'm willing to look into that. But likely that's also a lie. I believe there's evidence Bernie was cheated. He was cheated in the sense of like the DNC was not for him and they gave some preferential treatment to Hillary. It wasn't cheated in the sense of like some votes being fraudulently, counted and laws being broken to get Hillary in power. I just think they gave advantages to Hillary where they could. And that's the bummer about like parties have to run their own primaries. And so then they have a lot of power in like giving advantages. If you don't have borders, you don't have a country. Obviously. What does that have to do with anything? That's a true statement. No, it's not really. You can, I guess, have a borderless country, still have a country, but I agree we should have borders. Stab in the back. Yeah, I agree. But my point is, like, if people believe that Trump was cheated in the equivalent way of Bernie being cheated, then I don't think anyone would have it would be annoying. Like, I think it's a little annoying that Bernie was so despised by the Democratic Party, but it doesn't, like, make me think we have to believe the election was illegitimate. It was just like, well, yep, the establishment doesn't like him, so they're going to do what they can to prevent him. As long as it's not illegal, like, I guess that's their right. Like, the leaking debate questions, that's pretty scummy. But that's not like, flipping ballots or anything.
Will go to prison. Think of this. Donald Trump Jr. will go to prison for what he has done to our country and for his relationship with Russia. And I said, what the hell is going on? It's true. Now think of how bad a person do you have to be. You know it's a fake story. It was made up by him and Hillary Clinton and all these people, crooked Hillary. It was made up by these people. And you want...
I'm not saying that you use it as a crowd comparison. Oh, I get you. But... Oh, okay. So you're saying me saying that, another example of crowds not lining up with election results is Bernie is less of a good point because Bernie was also cheated, in your opinion? Is that kind of the point? You weren't comparing the two forms of like being cheated, I guess, or like the legitimacy of either claim. I get what you're saying.
Somebody's son to go to prison for a story that you know is false. How bad a human being do you have to be? Think of it. And now they're doing the same thing with January 6th. And it's the same people. It's Adam Schiff. The same words. If you just insert January 6th instead of Russia, Russia, Russia. And the media buys it, but not maybe as much as they used to, because CNN yesterday, did you see what happened? They came out with a strong statement that they are prohibited, totally prohibited from using the term, the big lie. They are not allowed to use it anymore. You know why? Because they know that the big lie is actually the big lie in reverse. And they have great liability, and they don't want to use it, but they came down with an edict.
Looks like JT's in chat, and from my assessment of his comments on my videos, maybe more on the conservative side. So I have a question. Do you agree that for Trump's political chances, because this is my assessment, it would help Trump politically for his future presidential run to drop the election thing? Like, even if he wants to occasionally allude to it or whatever. Now, I think he should drop it because it's patently false and very damaging. But like, just speaking purely strategically for him, if you were his advisor, would you advise him to drop the election stuff and kind of move on to only criticizing Biden's failures and like talking about what he would do and what he did good in his presidency as like someone who seems more conservative, is that politically beneficial, do you think, to him to kind of stop going on with the election claims? Because it is a little bit like, that's the past. Now, again, I'm not saying this because like, stop talking about that, because it's true. It's false. But I'm just thinking, like, from his strategy, is it helpful to keep talking about it? I don't know. For a future election?
They came down with a statement, it was announced yesterday, that we're prohibited, CNN is prohibited from...
But I guess, like, if you actually believe the election was stolen, why would you drop it? That would be, like, the biggest thing ever. But because it's false, and I feel like he knows maybe kind of that it's false, I don't know. It seems a little much, but I don't know. I really don't know. Like, if the election was actually stolen from a candidate, of course you would talk about that forever. That would be crazy. I don't know.
We're using the term the big lie again. I wonder why. I wonder why. We're getting closer. We're getting closer, but we have to fight some very sick and very evil people. Before they try to change our nation,
JT said Biden is doing so much damage, I don't think it matters. Obviously I would disagree with you probably on what damage Biden has done, but I guess that's not my point. Maybe it would be more beneficial if he leaned more into Biden's failures than his own feelings on the election. But JT, can you answer in the chat? Because I've been wondering this. Is this the JT that like I knew my whole life? Is this the same JT? Or is this some other JT? If you're not the JT I'm talking about, you'll know it. Don't think, oh, maybe we somehow met each other. Like, if you are the JT I'm talking about, you'll know why I'm asking. So you can just say, yes, I am that JT, or no, I'm some random other JT.
Left-wing fascists need to change themselves. There's no clearer example of the menacing spirit that has devoured the American left than the disgraceful performance being staged by the Unselect Committee. I love that name, Unselect. You know, they actually act, you know, they hate it, right? But they act like there's nothing wrong because they just don't want it. They're very good at what they do. They're con people. They're con artists. I say the unselected are supposed to be the select committee on January, you know, like these people are legitimate. Every one of them is a radical left hater. Hates all of you, hates me even more than you, but I'm just trying to help you out. What the hell did I
do? What the hell did I do? Well, I think they're investigating you, or January 6th in general, but you specifically, because they believe you incited both a riot, but then also you... I feel like it's more interesting if I... Okay, well, that's an answer then. Awesome. And also you tried to like overturn a free and fair election. I think that's why they have a problem with you, buddy. Well, I will say, regardless of if I know you or not, I very much enjoy that you engage, because one of the things I hate is whenever, you know, people's chats are just purely Yas Queen, you know, chats where there's no pushback, because I want to stay grounded with what other people think who don't agree with me, and that helps me have a more accurate / nuanced opinion on these different issues. And a lot of times in left-wing circles, they won't even discuss certain stories. And if I have people who keep up with my show who disagree with me a lot, it'll help me at least be in tune with what like all of the country is consuming and watching and considering and stuff like that.
The unselects, so I call them the unselects, and they act like, oh, they never mention it. I think it's one of the great. They never mention it. Someday they'll give me credit for that term.
I don't know what happened to my chat today, though. We got like multiple people who are throwing out some wild stuff. Is it Lise said FBI was involved in rushing the Capitol? It's all coming out. That's what they've been saying for the last 2 years, Lise. It's all coming out, and I'm yet to see any of it. And I make a huge effort to look into stuff. So I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what the benefit of the FBI would have been to storm the Capitol or get people to storm the Capitol.
I had a lot of good terms. We had a lot of good nicknames, didn't we?
Hey, but just so you know, Lise, let's see, Ray, and I feel like there's Jay Apocalypse. Don't just say stuff. Feel free to send lukebeasleyofficial@gmail.com. That's my email. lukebeasleyofficial@gmail.com. Send me all the evidence you got. I'll look into it, okay? If you don't send that, I will take that as you clearly saying out to the public, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't actually know where I got these beliefs. I just was watching some right-wing podcast, and they went off about a conspiracy. If you can send me documentation, websites, whatever, that I can look into and verify to lukebeasleyofficial@gmail.com, then I am happy to look into it, okay? And take it seriously. You know, I want to see what you're talking about.
We have great victims. I think this is one of the best. I don't know. It's not catching on because they won't let it catch on. The unselects have shredded every standard of decency, fairness, precedent, tradition, separation of powers, executive privilege, and due process. Nobody's ever done this before. They are knowingly spinning a fake and phony narrative in a chilling attempt to weaponize the justice system against their political opponents. Many of you are in the room, and you see people on the left.
Tommy said they really don't have any evidence. You know they don't. You won't get any emails. I don't know. I've been sent stuff before by friends of mine who are believers of this, and I was just able to pretty quickly realize why it was a false claim. Like, look into what they sent me. Oh shoot, that originated on some, you know, right-wing site that has been, it doesn't matter that it originated there. I'm saying that like that particular thing you sent me came from a great example of this is people were saying that they were putting abortion fetuses into the vaccine, and they sent me an article on it. So they, you know, sent me something to claim, and I looked into it, found out, oh, look, this originated on a fake Facebook post that made a false claim. And if you look into actually what the vaccine, you know, is comprised of, there's no fetuses in it. Anyways, so, oh yeah, I mean, real evidence is what Tommy said. Exactly. Most likely there won't. But I would love to see it. Whatever they have that formulates their beliefs.
That burned down cities, Democrat-run cities, killed people. Nothing happens to them. On the right, if you even were seen anywhere near the Capitol, in many cases, they put you in prison. The unselect's entire sham presentation.
Guys, my new computer is so much better for streaming. What the heck? I didn't realize how sucky my last one was until I got this one. It's making it so much easier. This is awesome.
Presentation is based on video that has been deceptively edited, misleadingly cut, and even doctored. They doctored Jim Jordan, who just left. He just told me they found something that he said they doctored it up. I think it was actually Schiff that did it. They took the entire meaning out of it. I said, good, you don't mind if I mention that, Jim, do you? They're taking 6, 8, and 9-hour depositions, and they're putting up 5-second clips, making everybody look bad. They'll take 9 hours worth of depositions, destroying people, trying to destroy them. And out of the 9 hours, they'll put up a 5-second clip where they got a little tired. They ripped completely out of context these statements in many cases to create an impression that's the exact opposite of the truth, so that what you're seeing is a complete and total lie. It's a complete and total fraud. And then it's what they don't say and the people they don't interview. We send people down. What about this one? Interview this one. These are experts on election integrity. They don't want to have them anywhere near. And when somebody goes off on the fact that the election was rigged and stolen, all right, that's enough. We're not talking about that. Well, that's the reason people went down to the Capitol. That's the reason that people went down to
I watched all the hearings, and there's not been a moment where someone was like, and the election was actually stolen, and they're like, stop. I don't think any of that has been discussed. Fraud. We need to prepare for a more polished leader after Trump. Yeah, I think DeSantis is that person. who like has similar intentions but is more effective at being, you know, like you said, more polished.
Various speeches, including one I gave. Remember the calm words I used? They try and make them sound like that might have been the calmest speech I think I've ever made, if you want to know that. I've had a couple of senators say, I never knew you could be so nice. But it didn't make any difference because they have their narrative and they know that we're leading in every single poll, both Republicans and Democrats, and they don't like that. So they'll do it any way they can. These are very vicious people, just like crazy Liz Cheney removed the part of my quote where I urged people to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard. Think of that, compare that to Maxine Waters. You ever watch her? You ever watch her ranting and raving and go get them and fight them and you know what?
Yeah, just to be clear, everybody, I don't think that if Trump is prosecuted, they should try to prosecute him on inciting the riot. I don't think that's a likely path to be successful because he did put in enough disclaimers for that to be a hard thing to prove that he was trying to get them to violently attack the Capitol. What I think is more fascinating and what recent legal experts and people in the judicial system have come out and said is Trump's plotting behind the scenes to try to prevent Biden from getting in power after he had been lawfully elected is more something that he could be prosecuted for. Much more than like his speech. I don't know. Because all the stuff he said is things people say in other contexts without meaning. Like, I do think he was trying to cause ruckus and getting his mob to go down there, but it's going to be impossible to prove his intentions on that, you know? But it was like real obvious what he was trying to do with overturning the election.
And many others. Look at Pelosi, her statements, they're horrible statements. Look at Schumer in front of the United States Supreme Court. He sounded like a mob boss. And they say, look, peacefully and patriotically. But look at Schumer. Go back and look at that tape. Frankly, Bill Barr, if he had courage, he would have done something about it. I suggested it. But he was so afraid of being impeached, he didn't want to do anything. How do you not get impeached? Don't do anything. Don't do anything. The committee is taking the testimony of witnesses who defended me for 8 hours, chopping it up and truncating sound bites to make it sound like what they said was absolutely terrible. But remember, it's also the people that weren't allowed to even testify that wanted to. A lot of people wanted to go and testify about what they saw and how crooked it was. Meanwhile, the committee refuses to play any of the tape of people saying the good things, the things that we want to hear. It's a one-way street.
Do you think with so many people that still support Trump, it's a good idea to prosecute him? This is something I've been thinking a lot about, and it's kind of tough. Like, the hell that would break loose if you were to prosecute, but not just prosecute, if you were able to successfully prosecute and lock up Trump. Like, it would go nuts in the country, you know? So, in that sense, it's a really brutal situation to be in where someone who's very popular did crimes. And that's why past presidents are rarely ever, like, prosecuted for anything. But I also think if you live in a country with rule of law and people who know the law are saying he violated it with what he was doing in regard to the election, we have to enforce our laws, right? So I guess my answer would be behind the scenes, prosecutors and stuff like that, and the DOJ, they need to work on a case. And if they can't make it like 100% slam dunk conviction, then don't prosecute. Because anything they do is going to be called a political witch hunt. The only way that I see it being worth it is if they know they can convict him because the evidence is so clear and the laws that he broke were so obvious. You know what I mean? Because, like, we got to have rule of law. So if he did stuff, it doesn't matter that he's the president, it doesn't matter that he's popular, like, he has to be held accountable. Or else people in power will know if I'm popular enough, I can do whatever I want. But if it's not clear if he violated a particular law, then I think you stay away from it.
Rigged deal. It's a disgrace, and it's never happened in the history of our country where we have no representation. They say, oh, they have Republicans. Who are they? Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, the crier. He cries every time he speaks. This guy's got a mental disorder. He cries every time this guy gets up to speak. He starts crying. I said, there's something wrong with that guy. These are our representatives. That's why they refused to release the full video, the transcripts, because we had so many beautiful statements. They want nothing to do with them. They want nothing to do with them. Somebody got up and started talking about the election fraud that took place with proof. I mean, they can call it science, they can call it whatever. They have a thing called disinformation. You can say something, doesn't matter, like 2,000 mules. Did anybody see that? Can't be disputed. These are government tapes where they're stuffing ballot boxes, to put it crudely. They're stuffing ballot boxes on government.
This is funny. I need to actually go back and watch it. But I was listening to like an analysis of it, and it's like they made a bunch of claims and then they showed a bunch of footage that looked like, ooh, but it wasn't like one of the things they said was people were going back to the ballots, right? But then they would only show one clip of someone putting a ballot in a ballot box, so it could have just been a normal person. And they didn't show like same guy putting multiple ballots in the ballot box. I don't know. Again, I haven't watched it. I should probably go watch it before I speak to it. But then the cell phone geolocation stuff is wholly unimpressive to me. Like if you take a bunch of inaccurate cell phone tracking data and then statistically millions of people moving around, a few thousand of them might come near. Again, the location data they're using is verifiably not that accurate. So they're going to come near some places where ballot boxes are, multiple ballots. Like, yeah, that seems very plausible. But then again, the footage stuff was funny. JT said, that's why I think they won't. In my opinion, there aren't good enough arguments on both sides, not enough evidence. Yeah, I would have to dive into... I'm not unclear on what he did, and like that's why my opinion on him is so strong, because I think that's such a threat to democracy. I'm unclear on like the specifics of the law to know how those line up. Like, are you allowed to do the things he did, even if it undermines democracy, if that makes sense? So I would have to like do a lot of legal analysis before I knew if it was a solid case. It is sort of led to a couple arrests.
Tapes. And what did they say? They go, oh, that was debunked. They never even said, that was debunked. Oh, okay. Most people say, oh, it was? Oh, I didn't know that. No, these are tapes. 1, 2. Guys looking up at the camera. Let's see. Where's the camera? Oh, there it is.
Again, send me these clips, guys.
And they're government tapes. And we should be thankful for Truth to Vote and Dinesh D'Souza and all the people that did it. Big hit. It's a big hit. But these are not something that's made up in a studio. These were tapes that were taken, and Catherine Engelbrecht, who's a great woman and a great patriot, spent thousands of hours with her group of patriots studying all of these government tapes that nobody ever studies, because who's going to spend thousands of hours? But they did. And they took out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of people that were rigging the election. And they'd go, one man went to 28 different boxes, putting 6 or 7 in each box. You can't put 1,000 in, it doesn't work that way. Going to different places, and they got him. They got him. They have him called. And what does the radical left say? Oh, yeah, I know that. Yeah, that was debunked. It's disinformation. It's not debunked. Can't be debunked. It is what it is. We didn't make up. They're not movie actors. If it was a movie actor, I'd say you got me. But these are not movie actors. The classic is when they get out of the car and they're looking all over the place. You know, normally you get out, you vote. These guys get out and vote. Ding, ding, ding. Oh, that was fully debunked. Nah, this is a shame what happened. This is a shame. And because of that, look what happened to our country. The sham committee even had to postpone its scheduled hearing at the last minute so they could doctor some additional video and probably...
Just because I haven't looked much into this, just because, like, there's way too many kind of... Ever since the election, there's been, like, too much misinformation about it to even keep up with from the right wing. But the big ones that get prominent, I like to look into to make sure there's nothing real there. Because if there was, like, I wouldn't want to change my opinion, of course. So I'm doing a little bit of reading on it because I just haven't looked that much into it. So give me a sec.
Hire another movie producer like the guy from ABC, who was the president of ABC. And ABC fake news, you know that. And he was the president. And I guess he used to do tapes and documentaries, and they put him in charge of making a documentary. The good news is very few people watched it. One guy got up and said that he heard me calling Mike Pence a wimp. Now, in honesty, I'm the president of the United States. You know, I'm sitting, I think they said at my desk, he's a wimp. How many people listen to me? It's like, I don't even know who these people are. But I never called Mike Pence a wimp. I never called him a wimp. Mike Pence had a chance to be great. He had a chance to be, frankly, historic. But just like Bill...
He would have been historic, all right.
Barr and the rest of these weak people, Mike, and I say it sadly because I like him, but Mike did not have the courage to act. Bill Barr was afraid of certain things, and you know what they were? Please don't impeach me. Don't impeach me, Bill Barr. Please. I said, what's wrong with being impeached? I got impeached twice, and my poll numbers went up. I don't want to be impeached, sir. I don't want to be impeached. The election was perfect, sir. It was perfect. It was so good. The election was perfect. And the Democrats are sitting back saying, no way we're going to impeach this guy. Nah, it's terrible. But Mike was afraid of whatever he was afraid of. But as you heard a year and a half ago, Mike Pence had absolutely no choice but to be a human conveyor belt. He was a human conveyor belt. Even if the votes were fraudulent, they said he had to send the votes, couldn't do anything. I said, well, what happens when you have more votes than you had voters? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Nothing matters. Detroit, see what happened there? Philadelphia, U.S. Attorney in Philadelphia came out and said Bill Barr would not let him get involved in election fraud, and he wanted to. McSwain, a good man who I think was destroyed by this. He was not allowed to look at election fraud because the Republicans were afraid. They were afraid of the consequences. But came out and everybody said that send the electoral votes immediately to the old broken down crow named Mitch McConnell. You had to send them. He's the old broken down crow, bad guy, bad politician. He wanted my endorsement. He was getting his ass kicked. The people of Kentucky like Donald Trump, and I like them. And I was leading by a lot, and he came to see me. He was losing by 2 to somebody named Amy McGrath, a good politician. She had $93 million ready to go. He's down by 2, and he's going to go down all the way, and he comes over to see me, and he practically begs me for an endorsement. And would I do a television commercial for him? I didn't like him that.
Okay, yeah, this is really, like, nothing. I don't know why people are making such a big deal of this. Let's see. So the geolocation thing, all I can find on it is it's not as, it can't get specific enough to even know if it was like them driving past where a ballot box is, which in a big city, people are gonna pass, and they put ballot boxes in locations where a lot of people trap, like common locations, so people can easily go and drop them. And so, of course, people are gonna pass by ballot boxes a lot. That makes no sense. And if the geolocation could like prove that it was within that close, that would be cool, but it can't, which makes sense, because if you've ever done like any location stuff with your phone, it's not ever really that accurate. But and then the second thing, so the geolocation, the second thing is the footage that's supposedly showing people go in there multiple times. But in one of the examples, it showed a video of a lady dropping it in there, and then it said she came back dozens of times, but it didn't show any footage of her coming back any other times. So, what? If you had the footage of that one moment, why don't you show us at least one other, so we know that, like, that's weird, she came back twice, which even that wouldn't surprise me. Like, I don't drop a ballot box because I just went in person, but let's say that I went in person and voted, and then my grandma was like, hey, can you drop off my ballot on your way to blah, blah, blah? Sorry, if I voted with a ballot and so did my grandma, and I dropped mine off, and then later we're talking and she's like, could you go drop mine off? I'm like, sure. So I see how that could happen, but they didn't even show proof that happened, so that's sad. And then they were taking photos, so clearly they were being paid and they had to prove it. I take a photo every time I vote. I've only voted once, well, ha ha ha, but because I just got to voting age. But the time that I voted, I'm going to do this forever, is to take photos, because I like documenting when I've gone out and participated in the civic process. I just heard my doorbell ring. Give me 1 second.
But I helped him out, and I got him elected by more votes than he ever got before. And I totally got him elected. He would have lost. In retrospect, I wish I ran somebody in the primary against him, but I still would rather have him probably than a Democrat, barely. But so what happened is they were emphatic about Mike Pence. In other words, ready? He had no choice, no matter what.
Goodness.
He had to send those votes. There was absolutely nothing that he could do.
They
I
got
said, well,
food.
what is he, a robot?
My sis got food without asking me if I want anything.
I actually came up with the word conveyor belt. I thought it was a better word. In other words, he's a human conveyor belt. He had no choice. Okay, that's good. He had no choice. I'm saying, well, then I see a small group of rhinos plus Democrats are right now, and have been for a long period of time, working feverishly for legislation to make sure that the vice president, whoever it may be, can never do what they kept saying that Pence and a vice president can't do. So they said he couldn't do it. Had no choice. It was 100%. Even happened with this guy, Luttig, whoever the hell Luttig is, a former judge.
Okay, so to this point, I think there's some legitimacy to the fact that the framers didn't feel the need to specify that the vice president couldn't unilaterally deny the results of an election. So I'm not surprised that the Democrats might go, hey, let's put something in law that makes it clear you can't do that. But doesn't everyone agree? Why would we want a system where one person who's also on the ballot, the vice president, could make that decision? No, that's why we divide it up so much, so that it's so hard to steal an election, because like all these states would have to be in cahoots. If you give that power to one person, what the heck? JT, the states and counties did delete much of the video. Right, I'm sure. They don't keep footage years after of all security cameras, of ballot boxes. That doesn't surprise me. But my point is, like, if they had proof that a person went to a thing multiple times, like, show us the proof. Don't just say they went dozens of times while showing one video. Like, show us multiple. Yeah.
And he was saying Pence had no choice. Then why do they want legislation So
Wait, why are y'all saying high five for good sisters? No, she didn't get me food. That's the point.
that a vice president can't do.
Oh, someone else's sister. I see.
And all I wanted them to do was send it to the legislatures. They also said that I told him that I wanted him to decide the election. I want you to decide. I didn't say that. They made up the story. It's not true. I wanted him to send it up to the legislatures. So it goes back to Pennsylvania, state legislatures. And if they see the same kind of fraud, and if they see the same kind of irregularities that I saw, I mean, you had one irregularity that everybody knows about that nobody wanted to do anything, and that's that many of these changes were not made by state legislatures. They were made by local politicians. They just changed everything. They extended hours. They did many, many things. That's against the
So
law.
hungry.
And that happened in many instances.
I want him to be done with the darn thing so we can move on. Should I order food? No, it's so stupid. It's such a waste of money. I need to stop ordering food.
But we don't even get into that. We should. But it was illegal what they did. They extended hours. They cut hours. They let people do whatever the hell they wanted to do. In some cases, they went to the legislatures. They were unable to get approvals, and then they did it anyway. So you're not allowed to do that. Do you know that even if a judge rules against you, you can't, even a judge can't change it. A judge can't, a politician can't, the senators can't. Nobody, the only thing that can change it are the state legislatures. And many, many cases that we're talking about, determinative, meaning election changing. Because we did much better in the second election than we did in the first. Got millions and millions of more votes. Much better. Somebody said, how'd you do with the second one compared to the first? I said, we did much better. I was told if we got the same number of votes, 63 million, that we had it made. I was told that by the best pollsters. We got millions and millions more than any sitting president has ever gotten, not even close. And they say we lost. Don't believe it. So they say that, so remember this. So they said, Mike Pence can't do anything. Then right after this whole event, they started working so that they could make what they said true. Because the truth is, he could have sent it back to the state legislature.
Yeah, I answered that already.
And that,
He could have done something that would have caused a massive crisis. So people saying he couldn't have done anything is stupid, because he could have done something. It just wouldn't have been in line with any of our Constitution's sentiment. Like, we don't have a system where one person can reject the results of the election, especially not someone who's in the election, you know? I don't know why this is difficult. He's just the president of the Senate, so he's going to go and certify the election. Like, I don't know. But like, just banking on the fact that he couldn't have done any, like, clearly as the president of the Senate, if you just refuse to go through the process of having Congress recognize the next president, then that will cause a debacle. So he could do something, and that's why I give him a lot of credit for what he did. But specifying more in detail in law what that role is, I don't think is harmful or at all an admission that Trump's claims were correct.
they're having a hard time, for whatever reason, getting it approved. After this speech, he'll probably get it approved. The rhinos and the Democrats. Thomas Jefferson. Did anybody ever hear of Thomas Jefferson? So he was a vice president also, among other things, many things. But Thomas Jefferson had the same exact problem in the early 1800s with Georgia, which was unable to properly count its votes. Hear ye, hear ye, the great state of Georgia is unable to properly count our votes. Thomas Jefferson said, oh, we're going to take your votes. We're not sending them back, we're taking them. And he took the votes, and they got elected. He and his wonderful president.
Jaypocalypse said, due to votes not being certified, I can't prove fraudulent voting. Not being certified. What do you mean? They were certified. I'm confused. But I do have the right to be suspicious and question without being called an insurrectionist or traitor. So you do have a right to believe whatever you want. I agree. I don't think I'll call you an insurrectionist unless you tried actively to overturn the results of the election. But I think when someone calls you a traitor, they're trying to say, like, without evidence, you're undermining our democracy, which is really harmful, and that is against what I believe America's about. You know what I mean? Even though traitor is a pretty loaded term, I think it's fair to be really upset at people when they're casting doubt on the one part of our system that allows it to keep running, which is the belief in the system, democracy specifically. And a lot of people eventually admit, like you just did, you know, I'm just suspicious. I've seen some things, I don't know, without like material evidence. And it's like, you got to be real sure before you try to undermine our democracy, which is such a massively destructive process or, action. So I guess that's why people would call you that, but I probably wouldn't. I would probably just say you're doing all the things I just described. Like I mentioned earlier in the stream, I try to stay away from particular heavily weighted terms so that I can explain why someone is something without just saying it. JT, the Stephen Colbert intro, I saw that pop up on my phone and I'm like, what happened? What were they doing there? That's so weird.
So I said to Mike, if you do this, you could be Thomas Jefferson. And then after it all went down, I looked at him one day and I said, Mike, hate to say this, but you're no Thomas Jefferson. Yeah. And look at our country now. Look at our country now. And I'm not sure, maybe the state legislatures wouldn't have acted, but I think they would have, because they were looking at a lot of things. And right now we have the nastiest inflation that we've ever seen. We have a war in Ukraine with perhaps millions and millions of people dying in the end. I think it's going to be a lot more people than people. When you look at these cities that are being ruthlessly and horribly bombed to hell, you're talking about tens of thousands of people dying. They'll say, yes, 2 people died, 1 was hurt. And yet you'll have buildings pouring down all over and bombs being dropped. No, thousands and thousands of people are dying. And perhaps it's going to lead to World War III, because the way we're handling it, we just gave $40 billion on top of another $16 billion, so we're in for $56 billion. And you know, we want to help those people. We have to also save our country, by the way, but we want to help those people. And it's horrible. It's horrible, horrible what happened. But when you look at Europe and Germany and France and all these other countries, they're given a tiny fraction. A tiny, tiny fraction of what we're giving. We're giving $56 billion.
All right, it looks like he's done with the January 6th stuff, which is what I wanted to look at mainly. So we'll call it a day on that. Does anybody want to hop on and chat with me? I did block out a little time to talk. Any of the people who, really anyone, just let me know in the chat. We'll X this out. Gosh, I love my new computer. So much faster. Whenever I was streaming, whenever I would try to open a new tab, it would be like, and it would freeze up everything. And not anymore, baby. Pretty darn amazing. Do. I don't know what, did y'all see the weird postponing of the 4th hearing? That was bizarre. Do you think they found more information that they want to look into? So if y'all don't remember, pretty much what happened is they had the 4th hearing scheduled for, I think it was Thursday or Friday. And they randomly said it's not happening, like right before. And we don't know when we're going to have it. And then someone got asked, is it because you found more, revelations that you need to look into and prepare for. And one of the ladies was like, no comment. So maybe there's a bigger bombshell that's going to come. Your stream was great. I noticed the quality right off. Great. That is awesome to hear, because I had a lot of problems with my last computer. Nobody wants to talk. That's okay. I forgive you. You think there's dissent among the January 6th committee? Interesting. Like over what? That would be fascinating. Okay, well, in that case, I will go ahead and hop off. I gotta eat. I'm hungry as heck. But first, I gotta record my bonus show for patrons. Last chance for anyone who is not already a patron. You want to support the show. Patreon.com/ and then my name, Luke Beasley. And then you'll get a bonus show once a week. And it'll be very helpful to me. And I will love you forever. But if that is all we got, then much love to you all. Thanks for hanging around. Not the longest stream I've ever done, but almost 2 hours 40 minutes. Okay. As I mentioned to y'all, I haven't been streaming a lot lately because of life has been crazy, and I'm gonna be out of town again this week, next weekend, just a lot of out of town. So my normal content's gonna stay flowing. But as far as live streams, less often. If I have like a lot of time free tomorrow, I might try to do like an afternoon stream, but I don't know. All right. Yeah, and happy Pride, as Andrew said. And happy Juneteenth as well.